Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Thursday, January 15th, 2015, and here are our top stories.
Tonight, data mining feds want all your driving information. Then, a top rabbi calls for European Jews to be armed. And just how effective are vaccines? That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
That nurse started shooting her mouth off me in that elevator. You go tell somebody else to kill themselves, not me. And if they start getting smart mouth, I go, you heard it's Tuskegee, dumbass?
Are people starting to see the European Union as an emperor with no clothes? As a naked sham? Look at the economic news today. As the AP pointed out, Switzerland has ditched an increasingly expensive policy to limit the export-sapping rise of the Swiss franc. Well, what's behind that? Well, of course, the Swiss franc is valued because it has 7% gold backing. That may not sound like much, and of course they turned back a referendum this last November that would have increased that to 20%, but that 7% is still more than is backing the US dollar or the EU out of Europe. And of course, this is a reaction to an anticipation of what they thought the EU was going to do very soon, and that is do quantitative easing, just like the American government has done. They said that this came amid mounting speculation that the European Central Bank will next week back a big stimulus program that will put more euros in circulation, which will further dilute their value. So the Swiss decided that they are not going to continue to support the EU devaluing their currency. That's going to make things very difficult for the Swiss economy in terms of exports. But people are going to flock to money that has value. And of course, Europeans are not valuing the European Union itself. Most of the major countries in the EU are looking at organizations that are trying to pull back from the EU. And prospective members are giving it another look and saying, no thanks. As the EU is becoming a pariah, the New American reports, Iceland is dropping its membership bid. They announced last week that they plan to back out of membership talks, and critics of the EU reacted with glee, they say, to the news, while proponents of smashing national sovereignty and crushing self-government were left fuming. The UK Independence Party, UKIP's chief Nigel Farage, who has made a career out of opposing the EU, had some interesting quotes. He said, "The move by Icelandic authorities and the increasing Mediterranean opposition to the EU shows that the idea of the inevitability of EU integration has been smashed. More and more people throughout Europe either no longer wish to join the EU or, as in Greece, they want to leave the euro currency altogether." And that's what we're seeing throughout Europe, not just in the UK. We also saw this in France and other countries, as you mentioned, in Greece as well. People are upset about the mismanagement of the currency, but they also don't want other people running their lives. They're having the same kind of reactions that we should be having here in America, and to some degree we are having here in America, although we're not seeing that kind of electoral success in people who want to pull back from the central government. But it goes beyond that. People are starting to question the very idea that the government can keep them safe. Here's the leading rabbi from Europe saying that they need to have the authority for Jews to carry guns. He's not saying everybody, and he's not even saying all Jews. Look at what he has to say. A prominent Jewish organization in Europe is petitioning, not demanding, but petitioning, the European Union to allow members of the Jewish community to carry guns, quote, for the essential protection of their communities. He said that the EU should empower and train Jews to handle firearms as means of protection. Once Jews got firearms in the Warsaw Ghetto, they were able to tie down 5 Panzer battalions for a couple of months. They finally had to burn them out. And they did it on the same day that later we saw the government burn out the Branch Davidians on April the 19th. There's a lesson there that people who are armed with small arms can even hold down a tyrannical military. We need to understand the importance of individual firearms, and of course there is an organization, Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. It is a private, individual right to keep and bear arms. Of course, as we just saw, stringent gun control laws are no restraint against the kind of violence we've seen in France. Now we're going to be talking at the end of the program to Gerald Salenti at Trends Research. We're going to talk about these trends in Europe, these economic trends, but we're also going to talk about the trend of whether or not people are going to think for themselves or whether they're going to blindly follow orders from authority, as we just saw in the DC subway. It's not only will we blindly follow orders when we're in that kind of a situation, but in an ordinary life, are we going to allow authorities to intimidate us to doing things that are going to harm us and harm our families? Will we blindly follow them when they tell us to get our vaccines, for example? The CDC is now admitting that up to 88% of the people who get the flu vaccine still get the flu. This is a story from Yahoo. They say that flu vaccine has just been 23% effective. See, that's the way they couch it. They don't talk about how many people are getting it. That's 77% overall of people who get the shot and still get the flu. But when you break it down by age groups, we see that 26% of those aged 6 months, 6 months, that young, through 17 years, 26% of those still get the flu after they get the shot. For ages 18 through 49, it was 12% effective, they say, and for those 50 years and older, it was 14% effective. Those are figures from the CDC. Now, when they say it was 12% effective, that means that 88% of the people still got the flu when they got the vaccine shot. Or did they get the flu because they got the vaccine shot? We don't know because they're not doing a study of how many people who didn't get the flu vaccine didn't get the flu. So they're not doing a full A/B comparison, and they're trying to put it out there as an effective rate, even though those rates are sinking down to nearly single digits. Now, we also see from the GOP, they're starting to try to make a move to regain the confidence of their base. I think it's really simply a head fake. We see an article from the New American that the House is voting to defund DACA and other Obama actions. And of course, that is the Deferred Action for Child Arrivals. Now, how is that going to stop any of these actions that Homeland Security and the Customs Department, immigrations, how is that going to stop it when you defund DACA? How do you defund not doing something? See, that is a non-deportation program. So defunding it is not really going to accomplish anything, even if they pass it. But they point out in the article that the House has previously defunded DACA, and it didn't make any difference. They say the defunding did not prevent the Obama administration from continuing DACA. It instead expanded in Homeland Security Jay Johnson's Executive Action Memorandum on November the 20th. So back in July of last year, they defunded it. Then on November 20th, we have an executive order, not from the president, but from a bureaucrat. Do you understand how our government is devolving into a dictatorship that doesn't follow the Constitution, doesn't follow the law, doesn't care what Congress does? They're going to do whatever they want to, and that's exactly what they're doing here. They called that the exercising prosecutorial discretion with respect to individuals who came to the United States as children with respect to certain individuals who are parents of U.S. citizens or permanent residents. That's the way the bureaucracy gets around the laws. For the longest time, we've had bureaucracies like the EPA, and now we see Homeland Security, essentially writing their own laws without our elected representatives, calling it regulations. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. That's the danger that we're in. Now, of course, the GOP is also trying to move and say we're going to allow people to have more control of education at the state level, and we're going to get rid of Common Core because nobody likes Common Core. It's not just the GOP base. It's also many Democrats. It's not just parents. It's also teachers who don't like Common Core. Now, this is a new bill that is coming from Senator Alexander that they say could mark the beginning of the end of Common Core. That's the way the Washington Post puts it, because the Washington Post article is full of hand-wringing about how Common Core is so important. Talking to the people who support it, talking to the people who benefit from it, who make millions of dollars selling it. This is something, of course, that Bill Gates' foundation is intimately involved in. But there's another article that I think gives a better perspective, and this one comes from the Daily Caller. This article says, will it be a catch-22? Could reforming No Child Left Behind actually save Common Core? And that's really what Senator Alexander is proposing. He's proposing taking back No Child Left Behind. That was something that was given to us by a Republican, George W. Bush, in 2001. That was the stick, and Common Core was the carrot. Common Core was going to be the way that people would be able to comply with No Child Left Behind without federal sanctions. But it's become a monster of its own. Nevertheless, in this article, they point out by removing the No Child Left Behind, giving more power to the states when the states really should be taking that power away from the federal government, not asking for it. They point out that by taking that away, it might actually strengthen Common Core. This is a quote from Michael Petrilli, president of the center-right Fordham Institute, and he said, "It would be great for Common Core if a Republican Congress rolls back federal oversight." They say that while it began as a collaborative effort between state governments with no federal involvement, adopting Common Core was one way that states could improve their chances of receiving a federal waiver from various No Child Left Behind requirements. Understand that when they tell you what the test is going to be, teachers are going to be forced to teach to the test. So if you define the test, you're going to define the curriculum. But Common Core is being used far beyond that as an instrument of social engineering, as the entire education system run by the government is a tool of social engineering. They point out these various incentives, though, that the states have signed on to by getting Common Core. These various incentives have now backfired as conservative opponents of Common Core have used them as evidence that in the end, the standards are just a federal imposition on the power of states to set their own academic standards. Standards should be set by parents ultimately, by government at the most local level. If you're going to use government to educate your children, the parents should be driving that. It needs to be done at the local level. We need to have multiple approaches so that we can see something that works. What we're seeing now does not work. Common Core is an absurd method. It is designed to dumb down our children. Well, there's something else that's designed to dumb down our children that we're going to talk about when we come back from the break, and that is the new self-driving cars, or as I like to point out, they're computer-driven, government-controlled. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Every year we make resolutions to lose weight and get in shape. And the truth is, it's hard, even with diet and exercise, because of toxic food and our environment that is stressing our bodies more than ever before. Working with experts in nutrition and biochemistry, I found that super high-quality nutraceuticals, in addition to my diet and exercise, were the answers that synergistically worked. I could see the drastic changes every day with the amount of weight I've lost, my increased stamina, and more of a twinkle in my eye. That's why we are now so excited to launch the INFOWARS Life Resolution Pack, combining 3 essential formulations: oxygen-based cleanser Oxy Powder, the Secret 12 bioavailable vitamin B12, and your choice of super female or super male vitality. Now all available at a discounted price to you and your family to bring in the new year and make 2015 a true success. That's InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. 2015 is the year to do it, and it all starts at InfoWarsLife.com.
City of Austin tap water versus filtered City of Austin tap water.
I can taste dirt in it.
God knows what's in this.
This has an aftertaste.
Tastes like Austin water? Yeah, it does. Ugh.
These people just sampled City of Austin tap water straight from the faucet. Next, we had them try a sample of tap water filtered through the ProPure G2.0 filtration system.
High quality H2O.
That one is better.
Tastes like nothing.
Yep, I know what good water tastes like. It's good water.
Most tap water contains added substances like fluoride, chlorine, Monsanto's deadly pesticide, glyphosate, and many others. Studies prove that these substances are linked to an assortment of major health issues, including tooth decay, lowered IQ, and even cancer.
It tastes like you're drinking out of the lake when you're drinking tap water.
Yeah, it has that processed flavor to it.
The ProPure G2.0 filtration system removes these deadly substances and many more, leaving only fresh-tasting, deliciously clean water.
Okay, this is very tasty.
It's good water.
Refreshing.
It's good.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com today. Use promo code WATER and save 10% off your ProPure purchase. Again, that's InfoWarsStore.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
Well, computer-controlled, government-driven cars are being sold to the public as a benevolent new technology, something that is going to make